My name is Caleb Merritt, and today I'm sharing how one accusation shoved me out of my home and into a life I never expected. An aunt pointed a finger, a family looked away, and the only proof I had was my own backbone. Stick with me. This story twists fast. Tap subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Your shout-outs keep these real stories coming and help me bring you even more every day. It began at Aunt Patricia's table. The roast was tough, the room stiff. Her painted smile didn't reach her eyes. On the hall table sat her stiff leather handbag with an envelope labeled Brighton Savings. I'd seen it earlier and kept my distance. After dessert, she cleared her throat like a judge. Money was missing, she said. There should be $410 left. She counted $12.30 that morning and spent $8.40 at the community hall, the store, and wherever else. Her gaze pinned me, not Ava, not Mason. "Explain it," she said. I told her I hadn't taken a dime. "Mom, Helen," asked me again, calm but cutting. Dad, John, stared past me like I wasn't there. We were already hurting. The factory in Elmridge, Montana, had shut down 2 weeks after Halloween. He came home that day with boots still on and work gone. Mom tried to be brave, then cried into the sink when she thought we couldn't hear. At Patricia's, her husband Harold topped off glasses like we were a cause. I pushed back. Maybe the math was off. The room froze. Mom whispered that I'd shamed us. That's when something inside me went still as stone. That night at home, I packed my school bag. In Mason's drawer, behind his comic book stack, I found a torn Brighton savings slip. He walked in, saw it, and said one word, "Don't." No panic, just a wall. When Mom asked again, I said I was innocent. She didn't believe me. Dad kept quiet. By round dawn, I left a note for Ava. "I'm okay, take care of them," and stepped out with a backpack, a scratched handset, and $92. Brookline met me with wet sidewalks and tired air. The intercity coach had rattled through Darrow County with a dead heater. I followed a warm glow to a brick storefront, Lawson's Bakery and Brew, letters hand-painted and fading. Inside, a man in a flour-dusted apron looked up. "Looking for work or warmth?" he asked. "Both," I said. A woman with quick steps came from the back. "Frank, give the kid a roll," she said, then turned to me. "Grab a bite, then grab a broom. We will open soon." That was the interview. I scrubbed tables, polished glass, and mopped until my hands stung. She slid me another roll and a ceramic mug of brew. Frank gave a small nod, like I'd passed a test with no paper. They didn't offer speeches, just a start. In a morning that felt like the end, the Lawsons gave me the first corner of a new beginning. It was early winter, and I was 18, standing in a warm room. Their names were Frank Lawson and Edith Lawson, and they chose to trust me. The room above Lawson's Bakery and Brew was barely big enough to turn around in. A squeaky window, a narrow bed, a shower that leaked onto the tile, and an old dresser that smelled of yeast. Rent came out of my check. $45 a week, no contract, just a warning not to bring trouble upstairs. I woke before dawn, learning the rhythm of dough and silence. Frank Lawson showed me how to judge heat by scent. Edith taught me to fill jam jars without dripping on the counter. When the ovens hummed and the world was still asleep, it felt like breathing for the first time in months. After 2 weeks, I bought a small P.O. box and mailed Ava a short note. "I'm okay. Don't write back. No return address." I didn't trust what might happen if it reached home. By the end of the first month, I could run the register, fix the card reader, and pour espresso with steady hands. Regulars began to nod when I passed. An old man dropped a quarter in the tip jar every morning and said, "Steady hands, kid." Peace cracked when Frank opened a letter from the landlord. The rent was rising 22%. No repairs. Just greed. He folded the paper, slid it beneath the counter, and went back to the ovens. Later, while he stepped outside for a smoke, I read the letterhead, Harlow Realty Group. My stomach turned. That was Aunt Patricia's company. I didn't tell him, didn't tell Edith. I only circled the due date, the 20th, on the shop calendar in red. Customers asked what it meant. Maybe something worth noticing, I said. Word spread. Brookline loved a secret. A week before the increase, a Brookfield Chronicle reporter came in, ordered a cinnamon roll, and snapped photos. She asked Frank how it felt being pushed by a big landlord. He just said, "We've stood longer than their numbers." The article hit Tuesday. Headline, "Beloved Bakery Gets Burned." By the next morning, tips overflowed. People prepaid orders, strangers offered free legal help, and someone donated sacks of flour at dawn. The town had decided who it was rooting for. Inside, I was boiling. This was Patricia's world. Pressure, paperwork, pretending it was just business. She didn't even know I was here, but her shadow still reached me. That winter, I found rhythm. Scrub, sweep, breathe. Frank would glance at my dough and say, "Ease up, Caleb," Edith explained. "Treat it rough, and it dies, like anything alive." By midwinter, I handled the morning bake alone. He'd tap a tray corner, nod once, and move on. They started trusting me with the till at close. One night, he tossed me keys to an old compact sedan they used for deliveries. The brakes groaned, but I drove it like a treasure, learning which alleys stayed clear in snow. When the shop closed, I walked to Brookfield Evening Institute for a night class. Small business basics. The instructor's voice was dry, but one line stuck. "You can't run what you don't understand." I didn't know my path yet, only that fear wouldn't choose it for me. Every other week, I mailed Ava an envelope with $28, unsigned, marked, "For snacks for Mason." I wanted him to know someone out there still remembered. On Dad's birthday, I carried a card all day. It said, "Happy birthday, Dad. Hope things are better. Caleb." I never sent it. I never sent the birthday card. I tore it up and dropped it in the dumpster behind Lawson's Bakery and Brew before opening time. One dawn, I came down early and caught Frank Lawson rubbing his wrist, slow, like pain had become a habit. "You good?" I asked. He gave a small smile. "Just stiff. Dough's easier when you're 20. Then he shook it out, annoyed at the bones that once obeyed him, and kept shaping bread. By late February, a man in a pressed blazer came in with a silver pen and a voice too smooth to trust. Said he represented a development group interested in community footprints. I asked if that was code for condos. He laughed, all charm and teeth. "We want to help local shops monetize their value," he said, scanning the space like he already owned it. Frank stepped out from the kitchen, apron streaked with butter, arms folded. He let the man talk 15 seconds before saying, "We're not selling," and walked away. Blazer Man blinked, unused to rejection. I offered him a scone. He didn't take it. A few weeks later, a Brookline Gazette reporter stopped by for a follow-up on the rent dispute. She asked for a picture of someone at work. Frank nodded toward me. "Kids have good hands." I hated cameras, but I did it. When the article ran, my photo was there, flour on my sleeves, eyes squinting over the dough. The caption read, "Brookline Grit." It embarrassed me, but Edith Lawson framed it and hung it behind the counter. That article bought us time. The Harlow Realty Group lease didn't rise again. For now. I didn't trust that piece, so I started. Tracking everything, waste, hours, orders, which muffins sold best on Tuesdays. A plain notebook under the counter labeled log. When Edith caught me writing in it, she smirked. "Look at our little accountant." The next morning, a second key sat by the register. No note, no speech, just quiet trust. Work became rhythm, scrub, sweep, knead, repeat. When Frank watched me shape dough, he'd murmur, "Ease up, Caleb." Edith added softly, "Treat it rough and it dies, like anything alive." By the heart of winter, I handled prep alone. Frank would check trays, nod once, move on. Edith let me close, count cash, and lock up. Then Frank's cough started. Short at first, then deeper, heavier. Edith's worried looks got louder. One evening she handed me the shop key and said, "Close for us, Caleb." She didn't explain, but I understood. Something was changing. A week later, they sat me down after hours. Tea on the table. Frank's hands folded like prayer. "We're tired," he said. "Not in a bad way, just ready." "Are you selling?" "Offering," Edith corrected. Their kids lived in Arizona, one in finance, one in tech. No bakers left. They wanted the shop to stay what it was. With me, "I don't have money," I said. "We're not asking that," she replied. "They'd finance it themselves. Fair payments, no banks, no pressure. The only rule, the name Lawson stayed until I earned the right to change it." That night I couldn't sleep. The window rattled while I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the lease, Harlow Realty Group again. I read it 3 times and found one clause buried deep. Unreasonable increases exceeding market comparables. That word, unreasonable, lit a fire in me. The next morning I began calling around. I wasn't running anymore. I was fighting back. Owen Barker from Golden Crumb Cafe, 2 towns over, walked in like he already owned the air. His blazer gleamed, his grin practiced. "Heard you might be transitioning," he said. "Maybe we can talk about partnership." He glanced around, nose wrinkling. "Cute setup, rags to rolls, real small-town appeal, but bakeries need brains, not just grit. You know your way around a spreadsheet." I wiped my hands on my apron. "I know my way around 4 a.m. He laughed, sharp, hollow. "Sure, but someday you'll want to scale, systematize. And someday I'll want you out of the way." He blinked at my silence, then walked out without buying a thing. His card hit the trash before the door shut. That week, Frank and I attended a town review committee meeting in Brookline. Clean shirt, combed hair, paper in hand. "I work at Lawson's Bakery and Brew," I said. Not the owner yet, but hoping to be." Why is Harlow Realty Group raising our rent without cause?" Frank stood behind me, silent but steady. The room went quiet. Someone muttered, "Good question." Keys clacked. The moment got recorded. That night, Edith handed me a brown document sleeve, edges smudged with butter. Inside, handwritten recipes, notes in the margins. "Ray says add more salt. Too dry in winter." It smelled faintly of vanilla and ink. She said softly, "If you take this place, you take us with it." My throat closed. I nodded, whispering yes. We shut the shop for 9 days. No contractors and just us. Frank, his wrist taped, coffee in hand, guiding me through repairs. We scrubbed, painted over the yellow walls, installed new lights, and replaced the warped display case. Edith brought sandwiches on day 5, told me to eat with both hands before I fainted. When we finished, the shop looked alive. I kept the old script, Lawson's Bakery and Brew, painted over the counter, but the front sign changed. Matte black, clean letters, the Millhouse Cafe. We added a small coffee bar, 3 stools, nothing fancy. Partnered with a veteran roaster in Redfield Crossing who delivered beans every Tuesday in a truck that rattled louder than the old compact sedan. The Brookfield Chronicle ran a follow-up. Local kid steps up. The photo showed Frank handing me a wooden peel like he was passing a sword. I mailed that clipping to my P.O. box, hoping Ava still checked. No note, just folded neat. We reopened on a Saturday. By noon, everything was gone. Every roll, croissant, and loaf. I apologized to the last 6 customers, wrote down their names, and promised Sunday boxes on the house. They showed up early with travel mugs and thank you cards. The next week, I had a rhythm again. Early dough, late prep, ledgers in between. Frank still visited, leaning on the counter, claiming the coffee was weaker than before. Edith stopped by twice weekly with her signature sarcasm. I paid them both every Friday, full amount handshake each time. It never felt like debt. It felt like gratitude. Then came a letter from Ava. Dad was fixing fences and gutters for cash. Mom was working double shifts at the pharmacy. Mason kept to himself, shut most days. She ended with one line, "Aunt Patricia's been asking about you. I want to know if you've turned respectable." I folded the letter, slid it into the drawer with my logbook, and let the anger die quietly. A banker came next, Sterling River Bank. Neat beard, neat words. Offer a line of credit. I read the fine print and handed it back. I can read, I said. That's how I look at it. He didn't smile. 2 weeks later, Owen Barker made another move, tried to steal my morning baker, Lila Cooper. Lila Cooper was reliable, fast. Calm, single mom with a son in Little League. Owen Barker offered her $2 an hour and corporate benefits. She told me straight, I want to stay, but I'd like to watch my boy pitch on Tuesdays. Next morning I gave her a raise and afternoons off 3 days a week. She stayed, baked a tray of cinnamon rolls iced with thanks, boss. I told her to sell them like any other batch. That's when I realized this place had gravity. People wanted to belong to it. The next Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in a year. Ava? Her voice wavered, thin with static. Caleb. I didn't know if I should call. I leaned on the counter. I'm glad you did. We talked for 40 minutes. Safe subjects first. She had a part-time job at the school office, saving to move out. I told her Frank Lawson still dropped by, pretending not to be proud. When she mentioned Helen, her voice softened. She's quieter now. Cries sometimes. It's about you. I swallowed hard. I regret things too, silence answered. We didn't mention Mason, not yet. Some names still carried teeth. After that call, I bought 2 tickets from the intercity coach line and mailed them to her. No note. 2 days later, a scrap of paper came back. Send Mason. They need to see him breathe. He arrived that Tuesday morning, taller, leaner, hands shoved in his hoodie pocket like he was hiding. We ate pizza on milk crates in the back, grease box between us. Nice place, he said, eyes on the floor. Thanks, I said, keeping it simple. Later I showed him the kitchen, how to flour the bench, score a loaf just enough to rise right. Steam curled up when I sliced one open. He stared at it, like it spoke a language he'd forgotten. That night he crashed on the upstairs couch under an old quilt Edith Lawson left behind. Near midnight I heard him at the doorway. I didn't say anything back then because I was scared, he whispered. Then he closed the door. In the morning I packed rolls, drove him to the station. No music, just the road. Before stepping out, he hugged me. Quick, awkward, the kind men give when words won't fit. Thanks, he said. For what? He didn't answer. A week later, around 9:45 a.m., the doorbell rang. Cream coat, polished smile, Patricia Harlow. Family should reconnect, she said sweetly. We open at 4 and close at 4, I replied. No family therapy on the menu. She ordered a latte she never touched, tapped a scone with her dinner knife, and preached about perspective. I told her, revisionist history doesn't pair well with coffee. Her expression froze. She left the latte behind. That night, Ava called again. Said Helen broke down when Mason came home. Dad, John Merritt, just stood beside her, hand on her shoulder, quiet for once. He listens now, Ava said. That's good, I answered. We didn't revisit the Brighton savings envelope or who took the cash. Some truths didn't need reopening. Thursday morning, right after opening, a man with a clipboard walked in, the County Health Division. Complaint or routine? I asked. Anonymous, he said. Improper cooling procedures. I showed him every log, thermometer, and labeled tray. Edith Lawson's voice echoed in my head that morning. Clean kitchens or quiet kitchens. The inspector took a scone, nodded at the crust, and left us with a 97. Next day, I spotted Owen Barker's assistant pretending to scroll his phone while eyeing our counters. I walked up and said, we sell pastries, not secrets. Pick one or leave. He left. Every weekend, I tucked a few folded bills into the locked drawer. Across town sat a vacant shop, low rent, cracked windows, but solid bones. I started running numbers, first on receipts, then in a real ledger. It didn't look like ambition. It looked like breathing space. That Saturday, Ava Merritt called. Mom wants to see you, she said softly. She cries a lot now. I know, I said. I'm scared I'll fold when I look at her. You won't, she promised. I almost told her about the Brighton savings band I'd found years ago, proof of Mason's lie, but I swallowed it. Instead I said, tell her I'll come when I can. Then everything changed. Hearth and Stone opened a second bakery in Silverhaven, then another near Willow Lake. Old storefronts, cheap leases, but ovens that worked and teams who understood the grind. I trained them by hand, wrote guides for mixing, shaping, timing. No fluff, no shortcuts. Profit wasn't the goal. Peace was. My days grew louder. Invoices, supplier calls, health office emails, but less time with the dough. That part hurt more than I expected. Somewhere between openings, I started the Helen M. Foundation, a small scholarship for kids chasing trades, not degrees. Welding, culinary, HVAC, whatever built real lives. $1,200 at a time, no press, no speech. Front check said Helen M., back said Caleb Merritt. That spring, Ava called again. Mom might reach out, she said. I didn't refuse. A week later, the phone rang while I was scraping a sheet pan. Hey, Caleb, came the whisper. Helen's voice. I leaned against the counter. Hi, Mom. She breathed out. I'm sorry, like it was cut to say it. I kept her steady. Still drinking morning brew blend like it's medicine? That broke her. She trembled with laughter. Your father swears it keeps him alive. Sounds like him. She wanted to meet somewhere neutral. We chose the lakeside diner off Highway 27. Bright lights, sticky menus, old linoleum. I came early, sat with my back to the wall. They walked in together. Dad looked older but settled, not beaten. He shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug that knocked the air from me, the first since I was 12. Mom's eyes darted, waiting for me to bolt. I didn't. We talked about small things, work, the leaky roof, the rattling furnace. She blinked fast. You remember all that? Of course. John Merritt said he was renting a bay at an engine shop. Steady work, mostly mowers and snowblowers. We're not great, he said, but we're better. No one mentioned Patricia Harlow or the missing money. We spoke of Ava's office job, her stash of pencils for forgetful kids, and Mason, now apprenticing with a quiet contractor who paid overtime. Then Dad shifted in his seat. I should have spoken up that night at Patricia's, he said. I shook my head. It happens. He exhaled, shoulders lighter. When we stood to leave, Mom pressed a folded note into my hand, a community flyer, creased from her purse. I didn't open it until I sat in the car. Inside, she'd written, "Come home when you're ready." Driving back to Brookline, the air through the cracked window felt calm. Not hollow, just still. For once, the quiet wasn't punishment. Back at the shop, a new card was pinned to the corkboard. Owen Barker, Regional Partnership Opportunity. Same font, new logo. I didn't even take it down, just pinned it firmer with a dull tack and went back to kneading dough that fought back. The kind that needed a steadier hand. The new office came from necessity. 2 rooms above a hardware depot, squeaky floors, faint rubber smell. I hauled in a cheap desk, a leaning file cabinet, and a chair too soft for someone used to concrete mornings. On the wall, I pinned every note I'd ever written. Recipes, schedules, reminders, regrets. Below it, one card stood out, a community flyer folded once more, still smelling faintly of morning brew blend. The last words in her handwriting read, "Come home when you're ready," and for the first time, I realized I already had. The first thing Caleb did in his new office above the bike shop was open a business account under Hearth & Stone LLC. The second was called a broker. Within a week, he had a list of half-empty downtown buildings, good bones, bad loans, forgotten corners of Fairbend. One address stopped him cold, King Street, a tall brick building with black-trimmed windows and gold letters fading on the glass. Mortgage underwater. Owner of record, Patricia Harlow. He didn't flinch. Through the LLC, he signed the papers quietly. No headlines, no personal names, just math. When the deal closed, he inherited one tenant, Harlow & Kober Realty, Patricia's own office. The lease rolled over automatically, month to month. Caleb repaired the roof, sanded the oak floors, and subleased the rest. A barber displaced by a mall renewal moved in first. Next door, a mother-daughter tailor shop took the second suite. The older one cried when she signed. The younger offered to give him his sleeves for free. He let her. Weeks later, Patricia's assistant called about a late fee dispute. My manager will help, Caleb said evenly. We offer the same plan to everyone. Silence, then a clipped, fine. He didn't need to see her face to picture the realization. She wasn't the landlord anymore. She was the tenant. It wasn't revenge. It was gravity finding balance. A month later, Patricia herself appeared at Hearth and Stone, box in hand. "Preserves," she said, smiling too wide. They sat in the small back office. "I may have misjudged you," she began. Caleb nodded. "That's fair." She waited for the absolution he didn't offer. "I forgive you," he said finally, "but not for you, for me. I'm done letting you live in my head." Then he told her why he'd really called her in. "There's a trade school kitchen opening in the King Street building next spring. It'll carry a scholarship under my mother's name, Clara Brandt, not yours." Her face stiffened. "I'd like to donate," she managed. "Then write the check," he said. "All names print the same size." She left the preserves behind. Ashley later tasted them and said they were too sweet. Brent Coulson tried another stunt, filed a complaint claiming industrial odors. The clerk from City Hall called, half amused. "Keep baking," she said. "He's bluffing." That night, Caleb locked up early and walked home through the cold. Same apartment, same window that stuck halfway open. He poured black coffee into his chipped mug, hands steady. The memory came back. Mason, 15, hiding behind a sock drawer while Caleb took the blame. Years hadn't erased it, but the weight felt different now. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It was steering your own life again. His phone buzzed. Text from Mason, Dad's shop. "After close. Just us." He drove without questions. The old garage smelled of oil and rain-soaked dust. Tools lined the walls like ghosts of older years. Mason stood by the bench, rag in one hand, box in the other. "I've been carrying this too long," he said quietly. "You probably knew." Caleb leaned on the red tool chest. "I found the bank band that night," he admitted. "Behind your cards," Mason swallowed. "I took it." 300 and change. Caleb didn't move, didn't speak right away. The hum of the fluorescent light filled the room. "You were scared," he said at last. "So was I. I should have said something." "You just did." Mason opened the box. Inside was the torn Whitaker savings band, now flattened, tape-mended, wrapped around a folded note. He slid it across the workbench. "I kept it to remind myself what fear costs," he said. Caleb read the note, 4 words, scrawled small. "You never stopped being my brother." He set it down gently. "Then let's stop paying interest in the past." They worked side by side the rest of the night, fixing an old mower engine that refused to start. Every few minutes, Mason would glance over, waiting for a lecture that never came. None was needed. By dawn, the engine finally turned over, coughing to life. Mason grinned through the exhaust smoke. Caleb smiled back, small but real. He drove home with the window cracked, the sky just turning grey over Fairbend. At the first red light, he caught his reflection in the glass, older, steadier, lighter. Back at the bakery, he pinned a new card to the corkboard above the register. Clara Brandt Vocational Fund. Applications open spring. Below it, taped edge to edge, hung the old newspaper photo, his flour-covered hands shaping dough. He wiped the counter, turned the sign to open, and breathed in the smell of warm bread and new beginnings. "I was 16, Mason said quietly. "Stupid. I thought I could fix what was broken." Caleb didn't interrupt. The words needed room. "There was this RC car in the pawnshop window," Mason went on. "Same one you used to stare at when we were kids. Red-striped crooked antenna. You wanted it for 2 birthdays in a row." He tapped the small box twice. "I wanted to give it to you. Like, 'Here, big man, this one's yours.' Then I panicked. I tried to put the money back. Sloppy." Patricia started counting. "You know the rest." He pushed the box across the bench. "I found the same model last month," he said. "Sold a set of rims to buy it." Caleb peeled the paper back slowly. The car gleamed, untouched, almost frozen in time. His chest burned, not from anger, but from release. "I'm sorry," Mason said. "For being a coward. For letting you walk out. For letting Mom blame you. For letting Dad stay quiet." Caleb placed a hand on his shoulder. "I loved you then, Mason. I love you now. That's why I took it. That's what being a big brother meant." Mason shook his head. "You were a kid, too." They stood there, 2 men in a room full of grease, bolts, and ghosts that no longer stung. "You don't owe me this car," Caleb said, "or an apology. Just keep being the man you're becoming." "That's enough." Mason wiped his face and gave a shaky laugh. You always sound like a guy who wakes up before sunrise. Habit, Caleb smiled. Hard to break. He told Mason the truth, that he'd carried the whole family inside his head by believing this moment would come someday. Just us, he said. No noise. No one is watching. Just the truth, Mason nodded. I'll tell Mom and Dad. They should hear it from me. It's not yours to carry anymore. Caleb closed the box and set it aside. I'm keeping it on my shelf. Somewhere I can see it when the days get loud. Deal, Mason said. They hugged. No distance left between them, no weight left to trade. Just two brothers finally standing on the same side of the truth. Would you take the fall to protect your little brother? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true-style stories like this one. YouTube picked the next story for you. Tap it, and let's see if they guessed right.